Welcome back to Mornings with the Mandalorian, the show where we talk about our first reactions, filmmaking techniques, and connections within the greater Star Wars universe in the Emmy Award-winning show, The Mandalorian, now streaming on Disney Plus. I'm your host, Spencer Chandler, here with my co-host, as always, Christian Miller. Hello, Christian.
Oh, hey, what's up, Spencer?
Thanks for mocking me the entire time I was doing the intro. And with us this evening is going to be our guest star, Avery McGrail, back for a third episode all in one season. Heck yeah.
Oh, hey, what's up, Spencer?
Yeah, you finally might get to do a full episode with us this time.
Oh, he mocked me. That's awesome. He got me there. Well, I wasn't gonna say I was mocking you. My lips were just twitching while you were saying things, and my twitches lined up with what you were saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, hopefully, Avery, we can do a full episode and get your commentary on the whole thing. It'll be very epic. Especially because this week we get to talk about the finale of The Mandalorian. We're gonna go ahead and give you a brief warning. If you like this episode and you get mad at people saying they don't like this episode, we sincerely apologize ahead of time. So yeah, that's all we have to say about that. This episode was called
No, it's not.
What?
It's not all we have to say about
that's
that.
not
If
all
it
we have to
was,
say
we'd
about
end the podcast.
No, I mean, like, that's all. I meant that's the only disclaimer I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only. Oh, there will also be stupidity near the end of this episode on my part. We'll go ahead and warn you about that. So stay tuned if you want to know how stupid I am.
As opposed to now when you're acting very coherent.
Yeah, exactly, dude. I'm a genius.
Yeah.
I'm in college. I've left the county.
Yeah.
So this episode this week, chapter 18, The
16.
Rescue.
16.
Wow, I can't math
boy.
either. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm just gonna drop out. Okay, chapter 16, The Rescue. Boys, would you like to talk about this episode first? How did you guys watch this episode? What were your initial reactions? Avery, would you like to go first? Because Christian and I have the same story.
Yeah. I watched it not at 3 a.m. when it came out, but I did watch it Friday morning. Had some free time, so I definitely prioritized that. Watched it by myself, just able to take it all in and just really get my thoughts together about it. So
Very nice.
Cool.
Christian, would you like to speak for the both of us?
Honestly, those Friday morning viewings are underrated. I probably should have gone back to them this season, but alas, I invited Spencer over last Thursday, and I was like, you know what? You got time. Let's watch some NBA. Let's have some snacks, and then stay up till 3 a.m. to watch The Mandalorian.
We did finish
And
off
so
an
we did
entire
that.
box of Cheez-Its, as per usual.
Well, we finished it off, but it's not. We didn't eat that.
Yeah, it was probably
many.
like half full. Yeah, you're right.
Sure. What was different this time is that, obviously we were watching it together, but like, there was this pre-show from a podcast I follow, and I've introduced Spencer to, called Steel Wars, and they had this little like preview live stream right before the episode started, which they haven't done. We haven't watched, and like those. It was an interesting way of keeping us awake, I guess.
You fell
And
asleep, actually.
to sort of think out our thoughts. Well, that was when the live stream was over. We started watching Phineas and Ferb.
We
I
started
fell
watching
asleep
Phineas and
during
Ferb.
that.
Christian fell asleep during an episode, and I woke him up. I was trying to wake him up with the Mandalorian theme, but an ad played before it, and the ad was really loud, and he ended up waking up to like a Progresso ad or something. And then we watched the episode, and then Christian immedately, as soon as the episode went, he got up and was like, all right, I'm going to bed, and then left.
I said that, but then I kept going down the stairs, and Spencer was still on the couch. I'd go down the stairs and be like, "Wait, one more thing," and I said something about what I didn't like. And I was like, "All right, good night." Went down some stairs, went back up. I was like, "But this is why," and down one more time, and then Spencer said something, and then I just had to like look at him straight in the face, and we'll get to that later. But anyway, do you have anything to add about your first experience, Spencer?
It was really, it was fun. It was good for us to be able to like talk through it again. Like, I know one
and
episode,
react to it.
yeah, but like
live.
real time, because it's different whenever you're over FaceTime, I feel like. But it was really fun to just like sit at 3 a.m. and just talk about an episode, even though most of our talking was actually, I think most of our talking was pretty good up until like the end, and we were like, this kind of sucks. But yeah, I enjoyed the viewing experience, I think, better than I
Yeah.
enjoyed the episode. So that is my opinion. Is it time for a brief synopsis?
It do be.
All right.
Go ahead and synopsize.
So we start off with a almost dogfight in space between Dr. Pershing's Imperial ship and we got Slave One. Team Mando, as we will refer to them this episode probably, in basically invades the ship, trying to kidnap Dr. Pershing and get onto Moff Gideon's cruiser. 2 TIE pilots end up going down in the process, and Pershing gets them. They get toward these. I guess, is it a Star Destroyer or is it like something different? Is it like a smaller version of a Star
The
Destroyer?
Imperial Cruiser.
Yeah, it's Imperial Cruiser. That's what it is. And they go and they're gonna do this weird maneuver where Boba pretends to shoot at them, and then they're gonna like fly in the front of this thing and almost scrape the absolute dog mess out of their ship. So they get on. They start. Bo-Katan and her group go, and they're gonna distract all the stormtroopers and everybody, while Mando goes and retrieves Baby Yoda from the prison cells. So they're doing that. They're doing their thing. Bo-Katan is distracting everyone, along with everyone except for Mando. Mando goes over to the jail cells, figures out that Baby Yoda's not there. Or no, he is there. Yes, he is there. Sorry. I'm getting my episodes mixed up for some reason. Anyway, so we get cool fight scenes with some of the these are the Dark Troopers. The Dark Troopers, before Mando like spits them out the back of the ship. They get to a lot of other action stuff happens that we'll get into in more detail later. By the end of it, they all confront Moff Gideon, and at this point, the Dark Troopers decide they want to come back. They lock him out of the brig until they get a special visitor via a Luke Skywalker ex machina. He comes in, takes out all the dang Dark Troopers, helps them take out. Well, he doesn't really help them take out Moff Gideon, but they take out Moff Gideon. Not dead, but captured. When Luke gets there, Din, like an idiot, gives Grogu to Luke Skywalker, and they also R2-D2 shows up because duh, and they leave, and Din is left Grogu-less, and Grogu's gone, and he's very sad. And then we get a teaser for a Boba Fett show. Yeah, he kills Bib Fortuna.
Really fat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sits on the throne of Jabba's palace with Fennec Shand
I
at his
follow
right hand.
I follow this account on Instagram called Boba the Hutt, and it's been called Boba the Hutt for 4 years. And he's like, I just predicted the future. He posted that this week. So,
Very proud of him.
yes.
Honestly, it's a good thing in his career for that to happen. So I'm happy.
Yeah, he's going to
Happy
be
for
like,
Boba the Hutt.
yeah. All right, boys. That's the synopsis. Where do we want to start? Where are we starting at? The beginning? You said you want to go chronological this episode, right?
Well, that's generally the goal, and until we don't do that.
All right. The first major scene is that dogfight at the beginning. It's not really a dogfight. We just see the end of it. Slave One versus an Imperial ship, trying to get Dr. Pershing. Anything to say about that scene, specifically?
Yeah.
No,
So
I don't really remember
Boba
it.
shooting. Yeah, Boba's shooting at the ship.
Yeah.
But just for fun, right? Because he's trying to stun it and stop it from being able to move.
Yeah,
Like, he accidentally hit it.
I guess I never thought about that because he waits until it's in his scope to stun it. But then, yeah, you're right. What were the shots
I
before?
think he's just goofing around with them a little bit.
Yeah, because Boba's a good shot, so he wouldn't miss that badly on purpose. I don't know. or on accident. I mean,
Yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
yeah, I think the scene was very straightforward. I like that they didn't, I think it would have been very easy for Team Mando to take over the ship. So I'm glad they didn't make it like, the first 5 minutes of the dang episode, because there's more important things to get to. So I like how they did it. I like the opening scene. The ships looked really cool. Again, I always like seeing Slave One do a little aerial combat. It's always very cool. Big.
It reminded me of the beginning of the Gunslinger from last season,
Yeah, I see that.
where he says, "That's my line."
Hmm.
That sort of like 80s style action,
Yeah, which if you guys
Um,
don't know, That's My Line is the name of the episode.
of our podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because in case people haven't noticed, we try to name every podcast episode of this show from a line that happens in the show.
Yeah.
In case you like see these words and you're like, what the heck does this mean? That's our little quirky way of doing a podcast, I guess. Even though it's not SEO friendly, because if we put stuff like, things that happen in the title, people would probably see it more often in recommendations, but we don't care. We just want to feel cool because we referenced a line.
Heck yeah. And they're always really dumb lines too. Like we don't ever do lines that mean anything. Like Easy Egghead is one of my favorite titles that we have, which was spoken by Mayfeld, I think, in The
Oh,
Prisoner. Yeah. So we have some really fun episode names. I mean, we have Spoken, which was iconic. So
Yeah, it was iconic. Anyway, and then we get to an unnamed planet that is it under Imperial occupation? I'm not sure.
who knows?
It's the first image we see is like it's like we have a Mandalorian gunfighter ship with its like prongs sort of facing towards the sky.
It looks a lot like am I remembering this correctly that it looks a lot like Darth Maul's ship from Rebels that he has?
it looks like a
No.
ship from episode
Well, I
one.
mean, it's
Because I think he stole a
there's-
Mandalorian ship.
he probably did, yeah. But those ships were made for the Clone Wars, but there's probably some. Yeah, Avery, you're probably right. It probably has some root in like prequel design.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly, but they were just like the Imperial sort of. I think more Death Watch-y people used them in terms of like what show or what episodes appeared the most.
Hmm.
But that's Bo-Katan's ship, and I think I remember seeing a post from Dave Filoni where he was like doodling, and it had a shot like this. Not sure if that was from season 1 and that it got scrapped, or if it was this, but we're finally seeing that ship in this season, I guess.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's this cantina scene, and something Team Mando goes in and tries to recruit Bo-Katan for their efforts. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, which is pretty interesting, having like 3 different sects of the Mandalorian race.
Yeah.
Boba Fett and Din and Bo-Katan.
And we also see that they're not all friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get Christian said while we were watching it, I forget her name, but the girl who's with Bo-Katan, the actor's name,
Oscar Reeves.
Yeah. The
actress's name is Mercedes Vernado, but the character's name is Casca Reeves.
Yeah, well, she said on social media that she was only on one episode, and Christian was like, she lied. That was his genuine reaction. Also, where's the dude, bro? I kind of liked him. He was I don't know. I guess not, because we already have 2 Mandalorians who don't say much.
If one of that trio had to go, it had to be him.
Yeah, I agree.
That's like.
We already have 2 Mandalorians who don't say a lot, so we don't need a third. Yeah, that was a cool scene. I really liked the fight scene. Boba Fett got his butt kicked just about. So yeah. Let's see. They go straight from that to. Is that straight
Hold
before?
on.
What?
Hold on. We got.
What are you talking about?
We're not doing. This is not the synopsis segment anymore. We don't have to jump from thing to thing anymore.
I got you.
So we have some interesting conversation here because we have Bo-Katan basically denying Boba Fett's, Mandalorian heritage and belittling him, and calling him a donor, and saying that she's seen his face or heard his voice 1,000 times, referencing the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about this? I mean, obviously we touched on the infighting, but like in terms of Boba Fett's personal sort of identity, and also our previous sort of, we've appreciated Bo-Katan in the past and seen her as like this really cool hero, but like there's still some of that Death Watch fierceness in her that like she's not always the most likable person. So what do you guys think of that conflict there?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that at first I was thinking, well, she fought with the clones during the siege, and so I was kind of confused. But then I realized how rooted she is in like Mandalorian heritage, and the creed and everything, and I kind of understand where she's coming from, because as a clone, it's a little weird that he is out here saying that he's a Mandalorian, even though he was technically raised by another Mandalorian as a son, even though he is a clone. So it's a weird situation, and I like that we get to see. I guess we've never seen the conflict of what happens when he admits to being a Mandalorian, even though he's a clone. I don't know whose side I'm on.
In front of someone who's like lived through that history, because
Yeah,
Din is like totally
yeah, and everyone else that he's ever come in front of is like, a Mandalorian, like, because they don't care. Like, he's scary because he has the armor and he's can beat the crap out of people. I honestly don't know whose side I'm on. I don't know whether Bo-Katan should just accept him or whether Boba should be like, you're right, I'm not a Mandalorian, but this was my father's armor, and so I will, do it justice or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's obviously something that Boba Fett thinks about, at least somewhat, because last episode he talked about how they might recognize his face when he's talking about going in,
Yeah,
undercover. So I think it's probably something that, as a character, he does struggle with a lot, like his identity in the galaxy, and maybe that's why he adopted kind of a quiet persona as time went on. So I thought it was really interesting that he had to combat that at the beginning of the episode. Something that he's probably been doing by himself for a long time. He had to actually live out in real life.
yeah. I guess I never even thought about that. Like, maybe that might be a good reason why he never spoke, really. Like, why he didn't speak a lot is because he didn't want to be recognized as a clone.
Yeah.
Because I think once people would notice that he's a clone, they could see that as a weakness, and because to everyone else, clones are dispensable. But then you get one like Boba Fett. So, yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about that. Christian, what about you?
I see it as him sort of sharing that sort of mentality in terms of being a bounty hunter, and that like just bounty hunters in general might not want to communicate or express that very like freely. And if you have a helmet, you have the advantage of being able to hide your emotions.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
IG-11 was.
What?
I said IG-11 was pretty vocal.
Well, he was still
exception.
Like, sure.
Cad Bane was quite the same guy.
Oh yeah.
but Bo-Katan, I think her perspective is that if his father is really a Mandalorian, he would not have sold his DNA to finance a war.
Yeah.
Like you're and that Django being the kind of person who's just finding his way through the galaxy is in her mind entirely opposed to how Mandalorians should feel about themselves and how Mandalorians should live. And so Boba Fett is just a product of that, and that's why she's like so clearly rejecting him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now we've said everything about that part. What do we move on to, Christian? What's the next part? First off, can we say I've seen the plan that they were going to use to get onto the cruiser, like let's pretend like we're under attack. Like,
Why do people ever talk about plans in Star Wars?
I don't know, just
Or
do it.
any action
People
go.
are mad when plans in Star Wars go wrong, when they go perfectly right. Like, why is it even a discussion?
I don't know. I just think it's funny because we've seen like does that happen in Rebels, or am I mistaken?
Oh, absolutely.
That they do that same plan just over and over again, and it like never
No.
works perfectly.
They always have plans and then they fail, but they all get out unscathed. And
But then they try to do the same plan. Like then they try to do plans the same way, and then they fail. Like, why did it fail? Because the Empire's not incompetent. That's
Well.
why. Well, okay, kind of. But anyway, they get onto the ship, right? I think we can skip forward to that part. And
Make a
Mando
splash.
goes and faces Dark Trooper. I always want to say Death Trooper because that sounds worse, but Dark Troopers are worse. How about this fight scene with the Dark Trooper? Like, dislike?
I liked it a lot.
I did as well. I thought this.
Very tense.
Yeah, I felt like it was actual stakes. It was good.
Yeah, I agreed with what Christian said afterwards, and the fact that like, I don't want to have to see him fight 5 of these in the same length that it took him to fight 1. You know, I feel like that would take up a lot of episodes. So him like putting them out the cargo hold was like a good thing because now we don't have to see him go through all these.
I laughed so hard when they were released to the airlock because at that moment it was like, oh, they're just gone. They're not going to be in this episode anymore.
That was
Thank
really
you.
fun.
Like, I didn't want them here in the first place.
Christian was so happy, and then when they came back, he was so sad.
That was pretty funny though. They came back like it was a false victory for them.
There's a thing that I analyzed Friday, and now I'm sort of putting it with something I just realized. Okay, so the reason why Moff Gideon is cool, or what I like about him, is that he's this like he's trying to keep the Empire alive, and he's if you in the grand scheme of things, he's an underdog, and he's like so stubbornly trying to hold on to this power and these ranks that he has. And Avery, I know you know this. Gideon in the Bible was this guy who was sent to lead the army in Israel, and his ranks were so tiny, and he was like sent by God, and he was like, and he had the faith to continue that fight because he, believed that God would prevail. So, and like they had like a minuscule army, but they're still able to win.
Yeah.
So, obviously, Moff Gideon's a bad guy,
All
but
right. I'm not gonna say
I think that could have been intentional. It could have been intentional, like why he was named that way, and that he has these small ranks, and he's still like
He's still getting the
so
job done.
sure. He is so
Yeah.
sure that the Empire is still going to rule the galaxy again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm offended that you don't think I would know that, but like, I mean, I knew that. I knew that too.
Avery's like he's a theologian. So
Oh yeah, I
Bible
forgot.
Man in the
I forgot.
2005 film Bible Man.
He's going to college for that. He knows things.
Avery, did you say you've seen Bible Man?
No, I said I played Bible Man. I am Bible Man.
Oh, okay.
A classic. See, Spencer, have you watched Bible Man?
I have not. No.
See, that's why I talked to Avery about these things.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you know, Spencer.
But
I
anyway,
really Bible Man. You've never seen it.
Wait, is Bible Man like an old movie that came out before I was born?
it was a series.
Yeah, I was in it.
Oh, epic! Congratulations.
Thanks.
But yeah, Christian, I do like your Bible metaphor. Like that's, I definitely feel like that
It's
has
not a
something.
metaphor.
Well, not, but the
It's just
comparison.
like a possible name.
Whatever you want to call it. I don't have an extensive vocabulary. Okay, I don't know what it's called.
So, that's what we know Moff Gideon from season 1, and that he's this underdog. And so I feel like adding Dark Troopers, even though I'm kind of tired of seeing Stormtroopers too, I feel like adding these like invincible army kind of negates that feeling of him that he's sort of scrapping together troops. The idea that he can just have this like pure, like unparalleled army kind of takes that edge away from him.
Yeah.
And so even though they were there, I just don't like them being there, but in that moment seeing them go away and seeing like given that imperfect like status quo, I guess, of the season, to see them be discarded like that was gratifying for me. And then that was taken away when they came back. And
Right.
even though it was like, okay, yeah, obviously they could come back because they're not destroyed in any way.
Yeah.
Then being used as part of an ex machina with Luke, I really disliked. But we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
What do you guys think
I
of this sort of like the way the Dark Troopers were used?
Well, I will say that the direct comparison that I will make it to when you're saying that it makes him seem less intimidating almost, I think, is that the the main standoff from episode 7 and 8 from last season, and then here, whenever we first meet Moff Gideon, he gets out of his TIE fighter, and he seems very, very, and he seems intimidating to Team Mando. They're stuck inside a bar,
And
and
he's in one TIE fighter.
he's in one, yeah,
We get
but
the
he's,
impression that the resources are not very
yeah,
plentiful.
but he's extremely intimidating, and you're actually scared, and you're like, wow, they might not be able to defeat him. But in this episode,
We still
those
have that.
you still have that, but as soon as the Dark Troopers kind of go, he looks like nothing compared to them, and then you kind of get to him, and you're like, well, he's nothing now. Like as soon as they get in front of him, you're like, oh, okay, well, it's over.
Yeah,
What's
but
he?
that's when he shines the most, is that he's able to create that eternal strife between Bo-Katan and Din, with the
But-
dark saber coming between them. So that's him using what resources he has left to his advantage, and being the good villain that he is.
I did
Right.
like that a lot.
But Spencer, when we see him first in this episode, he's holding a dark saber up to Grogu's neck. You're saying that's not very intimidating?
Oh, that is the first time we see him. I totally forgot about that. I'm not gonna lie.
I think we see him on the bridge.
That's more scary than a legion of dark troopers.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah,
Like ultimately, it's about what his mindset, like how willing he is to serve the Empire. That's what is so necessary to the sort of antagonist force of the show. That like that's strong enough to where I don't think we needed an invincible army of clone robots, hybrids. I don't think we needed that.
Yeah.
I know
My
a lot of.
comment on the Dark Troopers going out the airlock is that they took a really long time to come back, and I just feel like they could have come back faster. I don't know what they were lollygagging in space for, but
I think they probably could have come back much faster. It's Avery. I'll tell you the answer. It's because plot. It drives most things that we think are weird, in movies and TV shows. Yeah, that's why. Yeah,
Well,
I like them leaving.
they're just those are just things with feet. You heard it here first. Dark troopers are just things with feet.
Yeah.
And they're catching up with a Star Destroyer.
Yeah,
With just
okay.
things with
they have
feet.
to like swim through space. They don't.
They swim. Do you think they like? Well, no, never mind.
They stopped for a slushy.
Yeah, okay. They stopped at Dex's Diners for a slushie on the way.
What do you know?
But
Kaminoan saber dart.
I will say I did not like them coming back either. Christian let out a
I don't know the difference between knowledge and wisdom.
I will say my favorite thing about watching an episode with Christian is being able to hear his genuine reactions to things like in the moment, because sometimes on FaceTime you won't hear them. When they were pushed out of the airlock, Christian just like leaned back in his chair and went, ha, yes. Or something along those lines. Like, God, thank you. So that was a very funny
Spencer,
yes.
quick note: the sound is coming back again with your mic.
Just started.
Fun. That's fun. Let's get that sorted out.
A.
All right. 8. All right. So the next thing we have is we got some blaster fire between led by Bo-Katan and Finnick. We get some blaster jamming by Cara Dune. She ends up beating the crap out of some stormtroopers with the butt of her gun. What do you guys think about this scene? You guys like the shootouts? Yes, no, maybe. Avery, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. It's a pretty standard action scene. I appreciate any action scene that Ming-Na Wen is in. She always kills it. So
Yes, this was when I was talking to Christian, and I was like, "This is why I wanted Ming-Na Wen to do. Or is what I wanted Ming-Na Wen to do." Because if you guys have listened, I've really wanted her to just do some hand-to-hand combat because she's very good at it, and this is about as close as we've gotten to just some
Right.
straight up martial arts on her part.
Yeah.
So I liked it a lot. Maybe not the shootout scenes, but like when they were in the they were in like the cargo hold or something, and Ming-Na Wen was like doing some close to martial arts type stuff. Like that was really cool. I did like that a lot. What about you, Christian?
So I remember saying this to myself the other day, and sometimes I do this. I think I'm noticing it now, that where I'll just like come up with a take. I think I'm like, I have a weird podcast brain where I'm just podcasting to myself.
I think he froze. Okay, he froze again.
You can go
Yeah,
whenever.
we missed all that.
Is now.
Okay. So I was closing my car door, and I was just like, Fennec Shan is a character entirely written by Ming-Na Wen's performance. And then I just went on with my day. But does that make any sense?
It does.
You mean like her only story is like how she acts or something?
Like, at least this season, there's not a lot of interesting stuff where like people are reacting to her in the story. It just feels like she's just embodying her and making her feel like a real person and making her feel compelling.
Yeah.
But it's nothing like, they're not really putting her very front and center. Like even with the Believer episode, like she was just sort of like on the outskirts of that plot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think she does a great job though, because I think especially this season she has gotten to the point where I would like to see her more and like to see her do more things and maybe flesh out a story about, what she's about, what she truly believes in, because we're not really sure, because last season we don't trust her, and then this season we do trust her, and I'm interested to see where her loyalties truly lie, which I guess we'll see in the Boba Fett show that she will be starring in. So that's cool. I like that a lot. Avery, are you along the same lines as that?
Yeah, I agree with that analysis that there wasn't a whole lot going on with her, like actual character development, but she did play a good role in the story and being a good action person to follow and offering a good performance. So I thought Ming-Na Wen did well with what she was given, which was not to be a story-driven character per se. And I do look forward to her doing more so in the Book of Boba show, because she does a great job in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and with Mulan, other stuff that she's been in. Like, she's a good actress who carries characters well. So I'm sure she'll do a good job.
Heck yeah. All right, what's next? What are we talking about?
I got the confrontation between Moff Gideon and Din.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I always forget about this. Avery, what about this did you like, dislike, or just in the middle?
I liked it. I was kind of confused by Moff Gideon's plan. Maybe he's just trying to make his attack feel believable per se. Like he was trying to goad Din into being able to beat him, and maybe he wouldn't have been able to do that if he just attacked him outright. But I did think it was weird that he like tried to sneak up from behind him. Like maybe he changed his mind last minute. I was trying to figure out what his like motivation for that was.
Yeah, you would think that, I don't know, I think Gideon is a almost samurai-esque to where he's like a man of honor or whatever, and he doesn't seem like the type of guy to take down his opponent from from behind, it seems more like he'd
Right.
want to face them and have a fair fight.
Yeah.
Unless it comes to Baby Yoda, in which he's willing to just like, I guess, slice his throat with a darksaber, if he misbehaves. But yeah, I think that may have something to do with. It seems to me that he wants a fair fight and he's about honor. And this, I mean, we still don't know. He might be Mandalorian. That was one of Christian's big theories. He may be Mandalorian, and they're definitely all about having a fair fight if they're going to fight each other, or really anyone of power and of that matter. That could definitely tie in that way. Christian, what about you? What you thinking?
I don't think Gideon's Mandalorian anymore. I just think he's an educated person, you know.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
tend to agree.
But yeah, his fight with Gideon, I thought it was probably going to be a little bit longer, a little bit more consequential. I mean, there's a lot of things I thought. I mean, if you were listening the past few weeks, I thought that Mando was going to get stabbed with the spear because it seemed significant from a mythical perspective, I guess.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. It was. Sorry, I'm blanking because Harper's texting me right now, and
You're
he's
good.
he's texting me his review of the episode.
Dang, Harper. We'll have to read this. This will be our first off
Yeah.
person review.
Is
so,
it okay if we go into this now, or should I save it for later?
do you want
to
to
say? You should just go into it.
just go into it? It's fine. Let's go. We're
All
not
right.
about structure here on the Last Star Wars podcast.
Breaking news. The blue. He doesn't normally go this in depth, but he said Mandalorian finale definitely fell flat. What happened to the scientist guy? Why build up this moment between Bo-Katan and Mando, all for them not to fight or even struggle for the sword? If the sword used to belong to Bo-Katan and it has to be won in battle, does that mean that Gideon spared her life? Also, it looked like Gideon actually killed Bo-Katan with his hidden blaster. I'm not sure about that. But there's no attention given to it.
No, he killed.
Oh, yeah, he does.
Lady. Or
Does
at
he
least
kill Casca
he
Reeves?
got her.
I have no clue. I didn't pay all that much attention. I just know that Din jumped in front of Baby Yoda to take a
Yeah.
blaster bullet.
Yeah.
No, he shot Mercedes' character and then tried to shoot Baby Yoda, and that's when Din jumped in front of him.
Okay. I will say.
Yeah, Casca Reeves is probably fine, though. It's all Beskar.
Yeah.
But
I will say, I never thought about what happened to Dr. Pershing.
Some interesting points. What happened to the scientist guy it's a very funny first question to have.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how long his message was, so that's all I thought he said. Is like, hey, I'm really worried about Dr. Pershing. And it's especially funny because Dr. Pershing looks exactly like my brother.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he does.
So it's like, I wonder why you were latching onto this character.
That's really funny.
As for him, I think what happened? He was on the Imperial shuttle when they boarded the Star Destroyer, right?
Yeah, he was. Cara Dune or Fennec killed him. That's what happened. I don't know.
I don't think Mando would let that slide.
No, he wouldn't. He needs him for intel.
But they didn't. He needs him for intel, but then they didn't use him. I think he's probably going to feature in the premiere of season 3.
Probably, I can see that
because he's not explicitly dead. Mando still wants information about Baby Yoda. He'll probably feature in that in some way.
Yeah, probably.
As for Bo-Katan, I mean, we're getting right to that point of the episode.
Well, I have something to say about the last scene real quick.
The last scene? What do you mean?
The last scene that we talked about. I have one more thing to talk about, the fight scene between Din and Moff Gideon. This is another example. This isn't really about the scene, but it's about the fandom regarding this scene. You know how we sometimes don't like Star Wars fans because they go way too in depth sometimes and think about stuff that doesn't matter. Like what we do
in
sometimes.
depth. What do you mean by that?
So basically, I've seen a lot.
In depth is good. Things that don't matter is bad.
Yes. So this is both.
They find the devil in the details. They They
Yes.
focus on the wrong things.
That's what this is. I've seen so many people all over Instagram and TikTok and everything else going, why is Din so good with a spear? He was never trained with a spear. I don't care. Shut up.
Yeah, he's a pretty capable.
Yeah, he was.
He can swing the
He's
spear.
trained in weapons.
First off, weapons are part of his religion. He says
What?
that. And so I'm really tired of everybody coming up in here and going,
Okay.
why is he so good with a spear? Shut up. I don't care.
But Spencer, remember, there's different senses of who everybody is, because
True.
on
Okay.
like Friday after we'd seen the episode, I was showing you the official Twitter account for our podcast and the timeline of tweets from people that I've set the followers for our podcast.
Yeah.
And it's a very analytical, not very like it's fun, but it's a little bit more serious in terms of like how it tackles things. And I don't know, tends to agree with me
Right.
because I follow.
Yes.
But and it's you were seeing a lot of things for the first time, a lot of sense like points of view for the first time. It seemed like, and like that was our first sense of like, hey Spence, me and you are seeing very different sides of the fandom here.
Which is interesting.
Not like black and white sort of sides, not like this is the good side, this is the bad side, but just sort of like lots of different kinds of fans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
I've seen that,
it's interesting.
especially
Like,
on.
I'm not seeing a lot of people saying that, you know.
Yeah, well, I will say that especially on TikTok, because like I follow a lot of Star Wars people on TikTok, and so I get a lot of Star Wars stuff recommended, and everyone on TikTok either really loved the episode and is just absolutely like fanboying or fangirling over the episode, or they hate it for the wrong reasons and they bring out like stupid stuff like this. Like the only negative stuff I'm seeing is stuff like why is he so good with the spear? Like shut up. Like dislike it for a good reason or just like it. But don't dislike it for something stupid like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. That's what I have to say about that. Is I think that's really dumb, and I've seen multiple people talking about it, and I think it's a dumb statement. So,
I do think this episode is very interesting in the fact that it does garner a bunch of different reactions from a bunch of different parts of the fandom.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that like this episode a whole lot, like you said. Lots of reactions I read of people all about like the secret reveal of Luke Skywalker and just the whole episode in general. But while people like us who see things from a different perspective or just have a different type of understanding of Star Wars, not necessarily better, just a different point of view, like didn't like it as much. I just thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people who say like, "Oh, well, this episode of The Mandalorian just saved The Last Jedi." And I'm like, "No, I think it just shows all the people who hate The Last Jedi that it wasn't that Luke sucks." Like, get over it. Like all the people who hate Last Jedi, Chris and I were talking about this, are people who just don't want to agree with the fact that Luke is not the greatest person in the world, and they don't want to accept that.
Not everyone.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people.
There's a very loud section that is uncomfortable with the idea of Luke being jaded and cynical.
Yeah, and so this episode it's not saving The Last Jedi, and it's not only doing this to make The Last Jedi good. It's showing you what he actually is. And, you know, it's showing the people who hate Last Jedi like, hey, that's not just its own thing because Rian Johnson doesn't suck.
Yeah.
Like stop. Like this is actually
it's funny. It's funny because there's some weird videos that have gone on for years of people just sort of railing against Kathleen Kennedy, who's the executive producer. She's like the president of Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
And they're targeting her because she's a woman. There's no other reason to criticize her for these people. Like, she executive produces all of Star Wars, including her name is on every single part. So people think that she is like succeeding or failing, or like failing regardless. But like they'll say that I like this part, and this is saving us from this part of Star Wars because I like this part and not this part. And either she's correcting her mistakes or other people are making up for her mistakes, where it's like she's responsible for everything that you like or dislike, but not even directly. She's just green-lighting everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, does she have
just give her a break. She's a business person. She's not on set saying, you know what, let's
You know
let's
what?
change this line a
Ray's
little bit.
parents are the emperor. You know. I
Yeah.
don't think
Does
he
she
makes
have any creative like say in anything?
Yes, it's broad. It's more broad though.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like coming
Like
in here and
like
She's not
she's gonna
ruining Star
sign.
Wars.
She's
She's
gonna
not saving Star Wars. She's just running Star Wars, kind of.
she's
yeah.
going like ultimately it's her decision whether or not Star Wars is going into a phase of its life cycle where it's Disney Plus shows that all intersect and build off of each other and complete parts of the canon. That's a hierarchical, like organizational sort of thing about Star Wars that is like that's she's responsible for that.
Mhm.
And then it's like, well, how does a season of a show work? How does like what's happening in the season? What is it setting up? That's like smaller stuff with Favreau
Right.
and Filoni.
Yeah. I think so as well. We'll talk more about like our reactions to how the season ended and stuff right after this, but first we want to talk
Our lukewarm takes.
yeah. Funny.
But we still have to talk about, so like did you guys talk about there? I mean, my computer's sort of buffering, so I didn't hear all of what you're saying. But did you guys talk about Mando sparing Moff Gideon's life?
No, but we can talk about that right now if you would like.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think exactly about him sparing Moff Gideon's life? Should he have done it? Should he not have done it? What are the decisions for both sides? Personally, I think it was I don't know, because he wants him because he wants to know what he was gonna do and what the plan is, but ultimately, Mando's not in it for the bigger plan, so I think he should have killed him, but that's my personal take. What about you guys?
No, obviously, and I think it's something that season one did or beginning of season one did would have definitely done.
Right.
But I think we've seen this sort of growth in him that like he's not enjoying the violent parts of his life because ultimately he's got happiness now, so and that happiness comes from being with Grogu in those still moments. He doesn't get that from fighting.
Yeah.
So like that's sort of informed a lot of his decisions when he's on missions, is that he's transferring that compassion that he's learned from Grogu onto people he's faced. So I think it's a natural progression for him to a lot of other stories in the Star Wars universe.
I think it also has to do with the fact that like Cara Dune said she also wants him in alive because he's important and he can give intel on how to stop the rest of the Empire. So I don't know. I may retract my statement about he should have killed him because it's important to the New Republic that he is captured, and I agree with. I like the progression that Din is taking.
Yeah. That was what I was going to say, is that he was looking out for the interests of those that have helped him. So I
Yeah,
think he made the right choice.
yeah. Because of that, we get a cool like standoff between him and Mando and Bo-Katan later, which is I think one of the cooler scenes. To which I audibly said, "Oh crap," before realizing what was happening. So, for those of you who don't know, there was a part where the dark saber is taken from Moff Gideon, and Din tries to give it to Bo-Katan, but then Gideon replies that she can't take it because it must be won in combat. Which, yeah, it's supposed to, but also like Sabine gave it to her once, and she took it. So I'm not saying I dislike it, but what do you guys think is the reason? Why do you guys think she doesn't take it
Well,
this time, as opposed to when Sabine gave it to her?
I think it's natural for her to want to actually earn it and have a story of beating someone for it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not out of the question for her to fall back in line with. I mean, I don't remember the episode from Rebels very clearly. It's been a few years, so I don't know how lasting of an impression Sabine made on her, but I don't know. I guess it makes sense
She,
for her to like shake a bit of that off
yeah.
to just, you know,
So she was originally,
you're saying?
Bo-Katan was originally thinking that Sabine should be the leader of Mandalore. She really liked how, like, the drive that she had to make something better than what she has. Um, and so Bo-Katan was originally on the side of Sabine being the, ruler of Mandalore, and then Sabine realized that she couldn't, and so at that point she gave her the dark saber, and Bo-Katan just kind of accepted it. So it seems like she had she valued Sabine highly as a leader, um, and then accepted the dark saber from her before it was somehow taken from her, um, and into the hands of Moff Gideon. Um, I don't know, Avery. Do you think she should have just taken it or not?
I understand where she's coming from her character perspective. I do feel like that would have been the smart thing to do, but there's a lot that goes into those big decisions, and part of the Mandalorian culture is cult is like that a tradition.
Yeah.
Like their traditions mean a lot to them. So uh, I understand. It leaves us in an interesting place going into the next season of what kind of conflict that will bring.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Avery says that because I am excited for next season because it's going to deal with the complications of Mando taking the darksaber, or giving it, or and any of that conflict with him and Bo-Katan. I just wish that, like, why tease the next season with that? Why so abruptly take away that moment in the season, in this finale? Like, why sit in it for a little bit and then just sort of ignore it completely?
Right.
And that goes with a bunch of other stuff about the show in this season. Like, this season is entirely different from season one, in a lot of ways because of the things that they're trying to set up for future shows, which I just am pretty wholeheartedly. And so I would prefer that if they were gonna do that, they would have fully explored that in this finale, basically.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. So do you think that Din should keep? I mean, I definitely think we're gonna get something between them first episode. I I guess they'll fight. I don't really see them fighting. I think they'll come to some sort of resolve where either she'll just take it or she'll let him keep it and he'll have it. But I doubt that they'll go to the extent of just having Mando just wield the dark saber now. Like I don't think that we're gonna get to that point next season.
I think it's going to be an ongoing conflict, and I think that that's essentially what the next season is going to be about. I think like dealing more with the liberation of Mandalore and the conflict with the dark saber. That's where they're headed. But I don't know. Like, I'm not against the season finale, especially the second season of a show, to be like something that leaves you with more questions than answers. But at this point, it's left us with so many different questions that sort of robbed the episode itself from functioning as a story.
Right.
That gave us a satisfying ending, and satisfying does not mean happy ending. It just
No.
means complete.
Right.
I feel like this episode is not complete.
Like we talked about last week, we didn't expect this to end happily. Like we expected things to
Yeah.
be left on a note where things still had to be done. But at least this arc of the story was going to be done, and it feels like they just opened a bunch of arcs and brought this one to a hasty conclusion.
Yeah, I agree. Do you guys want to go ahead and talk about Luke, and then we can
Yeah.
talk about our whole episode things? No good. Don't. I know.
Spencer, come on.
Sorry. I know that in previous episodes, Christian and I had both gone back and forth. I think I know I have, gone back and forth on whether we wanted a Jedi to be in this episode or not, whether we wanted to see Luke or Ahsoka come back, and we had kind of come to the realization that if a Jedi was coming, it was gonna be Luke, and I was kind of okay with it. Afterwards, I'm not okay with it. I will say I wish there was no Jedi. All the expectations that I had for this episode were better than I think what actually happened. I think it was kind of useless to have Luke in it. What about? I know Christian feels the same. I think. What about you, Avery? What was your first reaction to Luke Skywalker?
I really kept hoping it was going to be Mace Windu.
Really, or as a joke?
Sincerely?
I mean, not sincerely, but
Oh,
a
okay.
part of me was like, that'd be really sick. But I don't. Yeah, I texted you guys after I watched it. I was like, I don't know how I feel about all that. I don't know if I like that.
Wait, should I read the text message that I kept sending people?
No, it's okay. Yeah.
About what the general consensus is about, like, why we think it's useless that he's in here. I don't know. Christian, you do a better job of explaining this than I do. Would you like to explain?
You want me to explain your opinion?
Well, I mean, your opinion.
So, well, I'll guide you guys through our first reaction. Me and Spencer
Yeah, that's
reacted to the first the X-wing showing up as, oh, it's Dave Filoni and Rick Famuyiwa, Deborah Chow, and Ken Young Huang, I think, who plays Carson Teva. My first thought was the X-wing squadron that's been introduced in this show.
Yeah.
Not Luke Skywalker, but the fact that it was just one, even after I saw that it was one X-wing, I was like, maybe it's just Carson Teva, and I'm like,
that's kind of what I
randomness. Thought. My random thought was like, why not just Carson Teva? He's gonna be the one. He has like blaster and a screwdriver, and he's like, I'm gonna save the day. Like, that would have been funny.
It would have been funny.
But yeah, eventually we're like, okay, yeah, it's Luke. And even as he was destroying all those dark troopers, it was like, well, at least we're not seeing his face, and they're not being so upfront about giving us this hero moment. Still sort of mysterious. We still sort of feel like we're and it turns out they were hiding his face for other reasons.
Because it looked mal. That's bad in Spanish.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So, and then I don't know, when he comes in, he doesn't introduce who he is.
Nope.
He says talent is nothing without training, which, like, I don't know, man. If I had a 5-year-old who could really shoot some hoops, I'm not just like giving him the John Calipari right away. I'm not like, he's ready to go one and done. Take him. Like, he's a kid. I'm gonna give him the ball. He's gonna play a lot. If he has potential, I'm gonna really get him to work hard. But he does not need to be giving his life away to someone who thinks they know everything about this skill.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem with the Jedi Order to begin with.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, yeah, especially, I mean, I think there's ways you could go around that, especially if it's going to be explored next season. But my gut reaction, because I'm so like interested in Jedi philosophy, I guess, and talking about how these things are presented in these shows and movies, seeing Luke take Grogu is just an instant. That's not right. This should not be happening. Like,
I did kind of.
I'm not even satisfied by seeing Luke, and I'm not satisfied by like this happening. And I feel like that was not the intended effect. I honestly think the filmmakers wanted us to feel satisfied that he was going there. You know?
Right. Yeah. You also had such a negative reaction when R2-D2 showed up.
Oh yeah,
Christian
which is
went,
a
of
bad
course,
thing.
why
That's a
not?
bad thing. If you're repulsed by saying R2D2, you know you did not put much thought into this sort of thing.
Yeah,
Like
I will
I
also
should be
say
so overjoyed to see him, but at the moment I was just like, get out of here.
this shows you how much I don't like this. If C3PO would have walked up behind him, I literally would have been like, why is he here? Like, I would have hated to see C3PO. And that's my favorite Star Wars character. I don't want it. It doesn't belong here. Like, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
I will say,
Here's what I'll say in somewhat of a defense of Luke.
okay.
I think it does kind of foreshadow a little bit of the events that led up to The Last Jedi, Luke.
Oh, yeah, it does.
His cavalier attitude, his like very not foreboding, but like his total belief that what he's doing is correct, and that he's going to prevail because I mean he beat the Emperor. Like what's left? I think that kind of played into why it was such a weird and quick interaction. I don't think that excuses it completely. Like not introducing yourself it doesn't make any sense. Like what?
Yeah, the main problem that I have with it is the fact that, like, I don't know if the whole season is about Din realizing that he needs Grogu just as much as Grogu needs him to protect him.
Right.
By the end of last episode, we literally get Din saying he means more to me than you could ever know. Those are his exact words. And then in the very next episode, here he is giving this child away to someone he doesn't know.
Right.
What in the world?
Yes, you've hit the nail on the head, Spencer. Because at that point, it's not about fulfilling the Mandalorian creed of getting him back to the Jedi. That's when he's just like, I want him because he's mine.
Yeah.
And he's my son. Dude, I didn't even think about that specific. Like, he is saying that he doesn't care if it's his job. He just needs Grogu.
Yeah, because he means so much to him, and that's what the entire season's about. We talked about this last week. The entire season, we've been waiting for him to just express how much he wants and loves Grogu, and he finally does it, just to throw everything that we've worked towards in character development, the entirety of his arc, out the window, just to be like, well, at one point I said I would give him to the Jedi, so here you go, Jedi. And you get a brief moment of thinking, he's not going to do it when he takes off his helmet and he looks Grogu in the eyes, and you're like, he's not going to do it. That's what should have happened. I think I would have a different reaction to Luke being there if he would have decided not to give him to him, and he would have been like, screw off,
I
sorcerer
think it would
man.
be really cool if he had just said no to Luke Skywalker. Like,
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome.
That would have
If he
saved
was
the
just like-
episode.
He's like, hey, what's your name? Where'd you go to school? Have you committed any crimes? Like, am I sure that you're not gonna sell my kid into slavery? Like, I don't know. Like, he doesn't know anything about him.
No.
I don't care if it's like a forced feeling of like, oh, this is the force is like telling him he's a good guy. I don't care. Mando should have been like, what's up? This is my son. You're a stranger.
The only thing he asks him is, are you a Jedi? Which anyone can say yes to that question.
Which that's funny though, because he's an idiot, and of course he's gonna ask a guy who just slashed a bunch of robots with a lightsaber. That's Din. That's why we love him. He's like,
Well, you also realize that the only other person he's ever come in contact with a lightsaber told him that she's technically not a Jedi.
It's fair.
So Ahsoka did tell him that she's technically not a Jedi, and he's the only lightsaber wielding person he's ever met. So, and Moff Gideon, who
Did
is
she
also
say that?
yeah, she said, I'm technically not a Jedi.
Yeah, she
Did
does.
she say
But
that?
you're
though?
right. That is in Din's character to be like,
The episode was called
yeah, right?
Yeah, but because he thinks that she's a Jedi, but then she tells him that she's technically not a Jedi, or something like that. I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Okay. Another I've seen this sort of in support of this writing decision, that people say that because Grogu chose to go with Luke, then we should be accepting of it because he's growing or whatever, and that's like he wants that. He wants to be on that Force journey. Grogu's not a real person. It's a puppet. It's a thing that was written into existence. We don't have to make sense of his actions. We are making sense of the writer edited his actions, and I'm saying they shouldn't have written him. So not a lot I have to do, I guess. I'm not mad at Grogu for leaving him. I just think that that's not something that they should have made him do.
Yeah. I think the only thing that could have saved, I think we could have, I would be okay with Luke being in this
Oh.
episode.
Okay. Sorry.
No, I would be completely okay with Luke being in this episode, and I would fully support it if Din looked Grogu in the face and then looked at Luke and said, you know, screw off, sorcerer man. Like, no, go away. I don't want you here. And just Luke leaves, and we now have Baby Yoda and Mando together because that's what we've been waiting for. But no, we don't get that. We get him making the dumbest decision of his life and going against everything. So I would be okay with Luke if that happened. But because he takes him, I hate it. And Luke should have never been in the show.
And again, like the total, I feel like they totally fooled. They were trying to manipulate her feeling. The music, I mean, all love to Ludwig Göransson, obviously. I've listened to a little bit of the score, which was released on Friday for this half of the season. Like, no shade to him, but like this sort of moment where like the music was swelling in a way that I'm repeating myself, and it's kind of annoying that I have to repeat myself after all these interruptions. But like, I think it's very obvious that they wanted us to feel good about seeing Luke, about seeing him whack a bunch of troopers, to see him show up and introduce himself. Not even introduce himself, just like expect to be revered automatically. Like, because like you touched on this a little bit, Avery, in terms of like working out the canon and like how it connects with TLJ. Like, he's not in the best place as a Jedi, and that he's taking kids to start a temple. Like, he's doing bad things with good intentions. Like it's not the way they don't want us to feel. Like, I feel like they don't want us to feel that that's something that's wrong.
Right.
I feel like they want us to feel gratified that he's back.
Yeah, and then
Like,
they go, if you don't like if you don't like
that,
this, here's
you
our
don't introduce yeah, exactly. You don't introduce a hero that saves the day and it's this moment at the end of a complicated dissection of what Jedi values are. You include that to be, this is the best possible scenario, and lucky us. And as people who love this show for what it is, before it had all these canon connections, people who love the prequels, people who love the Clone Wars, all of us, I mean, I can't speak for all of your feelings, but we have generally the same feelings that this is not satisfying to us.
I agree.
And I don't know, I'm getting animated, and I like to express myself in a lot of different ways on this podcast. But granted, I'll just make it clear, before we started this episode, or just in the past couple of days, this sort of made me ambivalent to Star Wars, and I like having fun talking about it.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, this is sort of pushing me to the edge of just not wanting to engage in this anymore.
Yeah. I think
and so I would like to give you guys the floor for, I think I've said enough.
Well,
so
Avery,
you guys could just take it away.
Avery, unless you have anything else to really say about this scenario, I think we've kind of said all of our opinions, and if we keep talking, we'll pretty much just be saying the same thing over and over again about
but
why.
You haven't. I've talked a lot. You guys
You're
have
right.
more stuff to say.
I've given.
And then after that, we have to get to the Boba Fett stuff.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I've given my full opinion on what I think about this. Avery, what's your opinion? You've kind of talked about both sides of this, having Luke in here. Where do you stand on the spectrum?
I think the writers made a really weird mistake in wanting the other characters to immediately know that Luke Skywalker is the hero of Star Wars. Like
Yeah,
it was just weird. Like that's what the scene comes down to, is that everything was misplaced and not where it was supposed to be. Like the intentions were misplaced, the actions were misplaced. Um, uh, Din's motivations were misplaced, and it just created a jumbled mess that really soured the rest of the episode as well. Because there were a lot of cool moments leading up to it.
yeah. Like I said, I was fine with this episode until that last scene. Like I was pretty much okay with. I liked the episode until then, and that kind of ruined the whole episode for me almost.
Yeah, I think it would have been really cool if Luke had come in as almost an antagonistic force of
Yeah,
trying to take Grogu away from Din, and Din having to work against that. Like if the music wasn't so triumphant, it was more foreboding and malignant.
yeah,
Um, like I think that would have been a really cool perspective, a different perspective about Star Wars, and it would have better illustrate what Luke's character is, and what drives him to the point he gets to in the actual movies in the sequel trilogy. Um,
I completely agree.
they they took an easy way out, maybe, but it didn't even feel easy. Like it felt like one logical misstep after another that felt like it was difficult for them. Who have like did Favreau wrote this episode?
Yeah,
Like he's shown that he can write a really good product, in especially season one of The Mandalorian. I really liked a lot of episodes in season two, but I think more and more as the show becomes canonized and has more characters from the movies and the
hmm
TV shows, and has more tie-ins with things that people are more familiar with, it becomes less of its own thing, and it loses some of its identity, and that's how you end up with Din giving up on Grogu. That's not something that would be in his identity. That's not something that's in the Mandalorian's identity,
yeah,
and that's exactly what happened. And that's why it's so unsatisfying, is because it doesn't feel right. The motivations are all off, and that's something that they're going to have to work very hard to fix in the future.
I agree. And in my personal opinion, congratulations, the Gunslinger. You're no longer the worst episode of The Mandalorian. Um, congrats. You've been beaten. Um,
Honestly, I think the siege might be the worst.
yeah, I
I
think
feel like I feel like there's enough interesting story in Gunslinger that can edge out the siege.
I can see that. Yeah,
Was Siege the one where where was Siege?
It was the one with Grief Karga this season.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. I agree. I think so too. Um, so overall, as a season, we don't think this end. I don't think this ended well. I don't think it ended like we wanted it to. I don't think it ended as well as it could. So overall, what were your guys's? I guess what are your final thoughts on this season? Better or worse than last season? Do you think it was a good arc? I know I've already mentioned to Christian. I think that season one was better than season two. You know, it was less about trying to tie everything to the canon, to the existing canon, more just about this little story of this guy and his kid. And that's what I really liked about season one. And I think they went too far into, too far trying to connect this, um, for me to like it as much. What about you guys?
Yeah, he was a simple man making his way through the universe
Mm-hmm.
until things got very complicated very quickly.
Yeah.
I, I remember talking about in the season two premiere episode that we did, about how much potential there was. We talked about all the exciting directors, all the exciting actors and actresses that were going to be a part of the show. A lot of different ideas that we had, some of which did actually happen, some of them didn't. Grogu never said brisket, so
No, he didn't.
ultimately my biggest problem. But I, it feels like there's a bunch of lost potential, and some of the luster came off. There was a lot of good moments in the season.
Yeah, there were.
A lot of enjoyable television. I don't want people to listen to this and think that we're just bashing it the whole time.
No.
I think the last episode was one of my all-time favorites from the show because it felt really grounded and felt like a really good story. I just really enjoyed it.
I think we
But-
can all three agree that was a great episode.
Yeah, but when things become so combobbled and confusing, especially characters' motivations, that's when all good shows lose some of their magic. And so that's something, like I said earlier, they're gonna have to fix that going forward. Or maybe they won't because they'll have all these other shows going on that they can just put a half-hearted effort into all of them to kind of create a whole, which I'm kind of worried will happen.
Yeah, I agree. Christian, what about you?
There are a decent amount of canon connections in the seasons that I did like. Like I loved Bo-Katan's episode. I loved the way they used Cobb Vanth, and sort of dealing with that Mandalorian, sort of those questions. I think Ahsoka's episode is one of the best of the show just on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And even if like I hadn't ever seen Ahsoka, I think it helps actually if you haven't seen Ahsoka and anything else.
Yeah.
Just the cinematic quality of her episode, even though there are things about her character's portrayal that are dodgy. But I love that episode. But those are sort of things on a week to week basis that can be gratifying or cause for concern that you just sort of drop and sort of don't dwell on.
Mm-hmm.
But the long term effect of these canon connections is that you don't get a satisfying end to the season, and that it disrupts the narrative quality of the season as a whole, basically. Like I was fine with it being a little adventure of the week thing through the season of like, oh, we're gonna, and then I wanted the finale to just be the finale. And it's a disappointment that that's where the show is going. Even though I still have hope that the show can get better. I think I'd said this, dude. I said this before, if not entirely in the preview episode of this season, but I said it like months before all this hype. It was like after like the first trailer, maybe. I told you, Spencer. I don't know if you remember this. I said this season is going to be the worst season because they're going to be focused on fan service, and that season 3 is
remember
going to
that
be
now.
what
Yeah.
shines.
Yeah, I remember that.
Like I've been so caught up in the present, I forgot that I said this. Like I said, this season's going to be the worst because they're going to be unfocused, and then season 3 is going to be really good. I don't know if season 3 is going to be really good because it's going to, apparently all these other shows could be just more of the same that I don't like. But I have to say that I'm definitely a little trepidatious when it comes to the future of Star Wars, because if they messed this up, which was like the simplest, purest sort of offshoot show, if they made this into a Marvelized sort of, this is a reference, this is a character, an Easter egg entirely involved in the plot, that I guess that's all I have to say. Yeah.
I think that definitely sums up, we all kind of think that this, I guess, season could have been a lot better. There were great moments, definitely, but overall, I just don't think it ended the way it should have, and there were a lot of things I disliked about it. Before we end this episode, though, let's talk a little bit about this post-credit scene that we get.
Okay, so this is the part of the show where I get to inform everyone of this very entertaining story that happened with me and Spencer.
Yep.
After we watched the episode. In part of the story where I was going up and down the stairs thinking of new things to criticize, and he was still in front of the TV, I had said, oh, and this is why I don't like the Book of Boba Fett announcement that they just made, is that Wait, no, this was the day after.
It was the next morning.
So I was criticizing the Book of Boba Fett, thinking that we were on the same page, but apparently we weren't. And so the morning after, we were eating breakfast, and Spencer was like, "So yeah, this Book of Boba Fett, like, they're gonna expect people to like read this or something like that." You said like you were saying that
I
it was a
said
book.
I said, "Do you think this Book of Boba Fett might actually be a show?"
And I was like, "Spencer, did you think it was a book?"
yes.
And I was so dumbfounded because I was talking about you the other night, like the night before, that like the title is purposeful because the Mandalorian has chapters, and this is a spin-off, so this is his own book. That doesn't mean they're not shooting a live action promo for a book.
That'd be pretty funny though.
Hey man, I don't know.
We're
Anyway,
still holding out hope on this Boba Fett book.
I don't know about you guys. I am excited about the Book of Boba Fett, though. I do. I like it. I think it would be cool. I've always thought Boba Fett could. I always wanted to see Boba Fett more, so I like that he's gonna have his own show. I like it. That's all I gotta say about it, because we don't know anything about it.
I'm pretty medium. It's whatever.
What Avery? What do you think? So, because we were gonna have you on for the episode about the tragedy,
Mhm.
And you had opinions on what you call Boba Fett Big Stick Go Bonk. So, what are your thoughts about him getting revenge?
Oh, I just thought that was pretty funny that he was just absolutely whacking some fools. Not like I was personally opposed. It didn't seem like out of his character or anything. I was fine with it. I don't have any particular opinions. I thought Boba Fett was fine in this these 3 episodes that he was in. Didn't like become a favorite for me or anything. I kind of liked his mystique of him only appearing in the movies and then being very silent, even though he did go out like a punk, unfortunately. So I'm glad that he gets somewhat redemption there. But I'm afraid that he'll become maybe a little oversaturated, but those fears could be unfounded. I don't know. Right now, a medium. I'm sure I'm going to watch it, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy some of it, and maybe I won't some other parts, or maybe I'll just enjoy it. I don't know. It's either way.
Awesome. Well, before we go, Avery, I know you'll have to go before we do this outro. So before you leave, is there anything you'd like to plug before you get out of here?
Nothing too much. You can follow me on Instagram or Twitter at the Aves, TheAves 17. And I write for the Puck Authority on the Rapid City Rush, and I write for the Colorado Avalanche on the Hockey Writers. I just got that job yesterday, so that's pretty exciting.
Awesome! Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, boys. You take care.
All right. See you, Avery. Adios.
Merry Christmas.
And also with you.
Merry Christmas.
All right. All right, so we'd like to thank you guys for listening to this final episode of Mornings with the Mandalorian for Season 2. We will not be having another episode of this until we get a Season 3 trailer, in which we will be doing, I guess, another preview episode with even more guest stars, and we hope to have grown a little bit before then. First off, we'd like to plug our social medias. If you'd like to find us on Instagram, I'm spncr.c on Instagram. Christian is Mission Kriller. Or you can go follow the podcast on Instagram and Twitter at Last Star Wars Pod, or on Facebook, The Last Star Wars Podcast. If you want to send us any emails, please send those to laststarwarspod@gmail.com. You can also find our YouTube channel, The Last Star Wars Podcast. We just want to give you guys a few updates before we end this episode. First off, this is the last season or the last episode of Mornings with the Mandalorian. So we do have a few updates about what episodes will be coming next.
So next week we'll have our banter episode, which is a compilation of all the outtakes and things we said before and after episodes on our mostly Zoom calls, I think, to sort of hold you over in the absence of the Mandalorian and other Star Wars news.
We also just kind of want to spend the holidays with our families. and not have to
Yeah,
worry about recording a podcast.
Yeah, that's why I didn't do prep for this episode. And then speaking of Star Wars news, there was a lot of Star Wars news last week.
Yep, lots of it.
And we'll be covering that in our future Star Wars episode, which will come out the week after next. And that's when the last Star Wars podcast proper is going to be back in session.
Yes,
we
that'll be
didn't
the
think
first.
we didn't think we are going to be doing the future of Star Wars episode this soon. So yeah, in the few episodes that we've done of the last Star Wars podcast, the flagship show, we'll have been doing 2 just about the next movies and shows, I guess. And then after that, Spencer, if you want to tease any of the shows we're doing,
yeah, so
in the far future.
Yeah, so our first episode of the new year will be the Future of Star Wars episode, which I think is a very fitting episode to do as our first episode of the new year. And then we have a few ideas because, as you guys know, there's not any Star Wars media coming out. So I bet you guys are wondering, like, what the heck are they going to do with no media week to week coming out? And actually, it makes it much easier to prepare for episodes when there's not stuff coming out that we have to watch on a certain day. And so because of that, we can film at any point during the week and it doesn't matter. So it's great. But it's still going to come out. It will come out every Wednesday at 8 a.m.
That being said, though, our next series is called How Was Blank Star Wars? And that's comparing other media to Star Wars and seeing if it has a lot of similarities with Star Wars. And that kind of requires
it does require prep work. So if you guys are tired of hearing us talk only about Star Wars, you're like, I wish they would talk about other things. Well, we're about to, because there are going to be things that we think are Star Wars, and then we might find things that other people think are Star Wars that we may not think are Star Wars, and then review that and review why other people might think it's Star Wars, why we don't, and that kind of stuff. Some other series that we have coming up. Well, what?
Other series are. I'm drawing a blank.
I have them written down if you would like me to do it.
Oh, we got some. You know what? The more I think about it, the more episodes. Like, we're gonna have to watch stuff before each episode.
Yeah, we are.
Because How Is Blank Star Wars? We're gonna have to watch other things, or at least brush up on those things and write our outline of our opinion. And then there's I think monthly we're gonna try to do a Kurosawa watch through, which I guess you could do that for How Was Blank Star Wars, but we know it's Star Wars because George Lucas directly took from him.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna watch some of his old samurai movies, some of his non-samurai movies. We just want to every now and then come back to Akira Kurosawa, and sort of that's something we're interested in as lovers of movies.
There's 2 other things that I have written down here that one of them is going to be a series and one of them is going to be an one-off episode that we don't really know when we're going to do it, but we're going to do it eventually. And the one-off being our favorite Star Wars characters. We're going to rank our top 5 characters, explain why we like those characters, which I think you guys already know, my favorite being C-3PO. But we're going to do a whole episode about that. It's going to be really fun. We don't know when we're going to do it. It requires almost zero prep work, so that might be when we're in a kind of a busy week, we might just decide to do that. The other episode got hinted at in our mutual rankings marathon. If you guys know, we went through a lot of hypothetical questions, like what if this happened instead of this? Like what if, one that we talked about was, what would happen to Anakin if Obi-Wan didn't die? So what we're going to do is we're going to do a whole series about these hypotheticals. We'll do one to 3 hypothetical questions each episode, and we're going to talk about what would happen if this happened instead of this, or what happened instead of this. We're not going to do stuff like, what if Anakin didn't turn to the dark side? I mean, we might, but that changes the entirety of Star Wars as we know it, and we're not going to do anything that's nuts. It's going to be small things like, what if Qui-Gon didn't die? Would Anakin have turned as fast? All that kind of stuff. And then we'll be ready for Andor, our series about the Andor show. We do not know the name of that show yet.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
Yeah, we
What
do.
is it?
Pretty sure it's Andor.
No, I mean the name of our show.
Oh,
About
yeah.
Andor. I wanted it to be. Can I tell them what I wanted it to be?
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted Coffee with Cassian because I thought that would kind of fall along the lines of Mornings with the Mandalorian. I don't know. I like it. We're
Yeah,
gonna
we have to
work on it.
decide because we're wondering if if the title of this show, Mornings with the Mandalorian, if that is referring to primarily the character or primarily the show. Because if we're following, because our title happens to refer to the main character and the show. Obviously, that's true with Andor, but like
We don't want to set a bad precedent.
we don't know if we should have the title of Andor, or if we should just take the liberty of being like, well, it's the character. The show is the character,
Yeah.
and we don't care about having the title in the podcast title, or if I don't know. So
Yeah.
if you have opinions on that, email us at laststarwarspod.com or something
At
like that.
gmail.com. You're good. Yeah, and if you guys have anything else that you want to say to us, any requests for series, anything else like that, please send us an email at laststarwarspod@gmail.com. We will answer your emails. We'll read them on the show. We'll do whatever you want. If we get enough of them, we'll do a whole mini episode about just reading people's emails. I think it'll be fun. Our last bit of news is that we are going to make t-shirts. And we will be doing pre-order only. We need at least, I don't know, 15 orders before we can get anything in. The price will be debated after we get our orders in. It will not exceed $15. It'll be somewhere between $10 and $15 a shirt. So if you guys would like to buy a shirt, you can text either of us if you have our numbers, or you can email the podcast. Our last plug, as always, go check out StarWarsNowThis.com, where you can find everything you could ever want in a Star Wars podcast. You can find podcasts about anything related to Star Wars. The guy who runs that is great. We're constantly in contact with him. Yeah, go check out the website. It's wonderful. We are also featured on there. So I think that's all we have to say about this episode. Are we ready to wrap up season 2 of Mornings with the Mandalorian, Christian?
Brisket.
Thank you guys again for listening to this season of Mornings with the Mandalorian. We'll see you next year.